Hello, I'm Mike King, and welcome to this edition of Profiling Evil Insights. Today, we're going to spotlight the case of Ghislaine Maxwell, and it's going to be wrapped inside of a discussion on predatory grooming tactics. I'm using the case as part of our discussion because of you. Thanks for asking me to do it. As a reminder to the rest of you, please go to my website and ask a question. I'll try to include it and include an answer in one of the upcoming broadcasts. So thanks to those of you who asked about this. Well, let's get started. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffery Epstein ended up in the public spotlight because they were predators who were also rich and famous. I say this because similar kinds of cases are happening all around the world. We just don't hear much about those because they're not rich and famous. But watch for them in your local news, and you're going to see similar elements that we're going to discuss today about the grooming tactics employed by predators. Maxwell is in the public eye today because of her association with her co-conspirator Jeffrey Epstein, who now is deceased. If you remember, she was arrested last week, or a couple of weeks ago, on July 2nd by the FBI in New Hampshire. She was charged with the enticement of minors, sex trafficking of children, and perjury. In reviewing the charging documents and articles and documentaries and other material that I've been able to find online, I think it's really interesting because she's often found lurking in the background of photographs with Epstein or other high-profile people like Prince Andrew. Now, Maxwell and Epstein go back as early as 1991 when they began dating. This is something that lasted for several years, and I suspect that he must have been working tirelessly to groom her during this period of time. Before long, she allegedly became the facilitator for his deviant sexual demands. Now, I'm only theorizing that he groomed her. It very well could be that she controlled him from the very beginning. But what's evident is, if the evidence is true, that she became a groomer and a facilitator for this pedophilic Epstein.
Maxwell then tried to normalize sexual abuse with a minor victim through a process known as grooming. For example, Maxwell would discuss sexual topics with the victim and undress in front of the victim, or be present for sex acts involving the minor victims and Epstein.
Now, according to some of the victims, she even participated in some of these sexual assaults, and I'll touch on that at the end of our discussion today. But as Epstein's sexual demands intensified, Maxwell groomed one of the victims that he had to actually start enlisting her high school peers.
I've worked like a pyramid scheme. Ghislaine brought me in. I brought other girls in. Those girls brought other girls in. And no matter what, Jeffrey constantly had that open revolving door of young women, young teenagers, children, I like to call them, coming through his door for one purpose and one purpose alone.
Some reports suggest that Epstein was sexually assaulting younger girls as often as 3 or 4 times a day. Without help, Maxwell would increasingly find it difficult to find enough victims for Epstein on her own, so she needed to enlist help. Well, with her newly groomed recruit fully indoctrinated, this young woman started telling her friends and her associates that she had a way that they could make a whole lot of money real quickly. The offer was intriguing, and most of her friends listened. She promised them a fast $200 for just 40 minutes of work. $200 is equivalent to a 40-hour minimum wage work week. The job, it was simple. Just give an older man a 40-minute massage. She quipped, he likes younger girls. And for the most part, the girls thought $200 was just too good to be true, and they were hooked. Well, as the day of the massage approached, the girls were advised at the last minute that they were actually going to have to remove their clothing, everything except their underwear, as part of giving the massage. When they pushed back, the behavior was normalized, and they were told that it just wasn't that big of a deal. something akin to doing the massage while wearing a bathing suit. Well, I'm sure the girls thought to themselves, something like this, I don't know. But, okay, I can put up with some creepy old guy for 40 minutes for $200. Well, soon they found themselves in the back seat of a black SUV heading into one of the fanciest neighborhoods that they'd ever seen. The homes were worth millions of dollars. Behind each home was a multi-million-dollar yacht sitting in the water. This is the kind of place where everyone was a millionaire, and many of them were billionaires. Well, as they approached the home of Epstein, all of them reported that they had this feeling of real trepidation, realizing that this too-good-to-be-true opportunity was really risky. Once they got inside Epstein's massage room, and he walked over and punched the 40-minute timer on and had them start the massage, they realized what trouble they really were in. Almost immediately, he began pressuring the children to remove more of their clothing. He even offered them another $200 if they would stay with him just a little bit longer. The girls all reported feeling trapped, and they all, sadly, were victimized. Well, predators like Epstein and Maxwell are experts at evaluating and understanding the weaknesses that their victims have. They figure out real quickly what really motivates them. And in most of these cases, at least in Epstein's cases with Maxwell, the motivator was money. Now, other forms of grooming might involve strategies like introducing the victim to drugs, creating a dependency, and once hooked, they could simply demand from the victim almost anything they want because the victim so badly needs to satisfy the physical demand for the drug. But groomers use a lot of different tactics. They pretend to be somebody that you can trust. Those who have fallen victim to these tactics will remark that they simply drop their guard just for a moment. They reason, well, he was so attentive and charming. These kinds of moments are really great times for you to pause and think about your interaction with others, especially with new relationships. Well, predators are experts at appearing sympathetic too. As you develop a new relationship, take time to really get to know your new friend. Allow yourself time before you get smitten by them. Don't trust others too quickly, even if they're members of your church or your synagogue or your mosque. And I'd like to take a minute and mention a special category of groomers for just a moment. These are the groomers, the adults who prey on children. Be wary of adults who put themselves in a level of a child. It's really laudable, and I really think it's a wonderful trait that some adults have to be able to communicate with children on their level. But child sex offenders will use this tactic time and time again in order to get a child to trust them. You know, some predators will act like they're a protector of yours during the grooming process. They're the kind of offender who will say things like, hey, nobody else understands you and cares for you like I do. They might even act outraged when bad things happen to you, or they might promise that they will always protect you if anything bad ever happened. These knights in shining armor may not be the people that you think they are, so don't fall for these false flatteries. Really carefully protect your space as you get to know people. Groomers love to separate their victims from their safety nets, such as family or friends. So could I suggest to you that you carefully analyze your situation if anyone ever suggests to you that you might be better off relying only on them? Especially if it means disavowing your long-standing familial ties. If your friends are cautioning you about the behaviors of a new boyfriend or girlfriend, rather than getting angry with them, take a moment and really think about what they're telling you. You know, many victims of predatory grooming tactics will report after that they ignored the advice of their friends and family members. You know, also, never allow yourself to be isolated from others. You just plain know better than this. Predators are only interested in one thing, themselves. They hunger for power, dominion, and control. In the Maxwell case, most of the victims shared similar accounts of what happened to them. They reported that Maxwell and the other groomers that were involved made them offers that they simply couldn't refuse. Then they started escalating the demands as the victims accepted the smaller, less significant demands. Epstein reportedly acted very businesslike in his interactions with the girls, almost like he was putting a strategy into play in case he was ever arrested. I heard one expert recently who said that this was Epstein's way of making the massage and the sexual assault appear more businesslike, not criminal. Well, I'd like to offer a little different perspective, one that I believe is more probable. I think that his demands, the order in which they occurred, and the way that he responded are really indicative of the kind of fantasies he had. Epstein has been called a pedophile who was fixated on mid-teenage girls. Well, it's clear that his preferential victim, at least at that time, was with girls who were slightly underdeveloped physically. The demands, the order of the requirements, and the response to the victims provided us a great and compelling view into what really was motivating that predator. When Maxwell was introduced into these sexual encounters, or when she was instructed to introduce herself, it also started to show us a lot about her personality and her motivation. I think when this is done, we're going to see an overwhelming case presented by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. If the witness statements are accurate, and I believe they are, Maxwell may be the groomer of all groomers. Not only did she facilitate these assaults and help provide the victims, but she reportedly was also a perpetrator. This is evident by one particular victim testimony that reported that she met Maxwell while giving her a massage. Soon after, Maxwell started paying special attention to the masseuse, and she offered her this incredibly great opportunity to make a ton of money and do massages at a private island getaway. The getaway was Epstein's house. She took the bait, and almost immediately upon arrival on the island, where she was separated from family and her safety net, she reported that the assaults almost began immediately, and she was victimized by both Maxwell and Epstein. Well, in closing, I hope you'll learn to trust your gut. Let your feelings guide you in these decisions that you have to make. There are some out there who would suggest that the victims in this case and cases that are similar to these hold some responsibility. I want to make it perfectly clear. They did not choose to be sexually assaulted, demeaned, or injured. They were victims of predators who exploited their weaknesses. Every one of us is susceptible to grooming tactics at the right time and under the right circumstances. It might happen when we're struggling financially or fighting a drug addiction. It could be during a time when you're homeless or you've faced a personal loss. The secret to remain safe is to remind yourself of the age-old adage that says, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. Well, I hope that you found this Profiling Evil Insights segment to be interesting. If you did, would you please like it and share? Make sure that you hit that little subscribe button below and you hit the little bell so that you get notifications. And we really could use your help in sharing the message with your friends. We really want to build this channel and hopefully do some good. Send me some suggestions. You can visit us at www.profilingevil.com. And if you do go there, take a moment and register for the latest news on our upcoming broadcasts. You can find a transcript of this segment when you log in, and again, you can leave me some ideas on what to do next. As we close, I want to say something that I say quite often. I hope that you'll remember that every community has a cadre of professionals who are standing by to ensure your safety. if you ever are being victimized, or you know someone who's being victimized, get to a safe place and call your local law enforcement agency, your physician, or your mental health provider. And until the next time when we get together, thanks a lot, and please be safe.